gavel in my... Yes.
Smithfield Town Council meeting, February 20th, 2024. Madam Clerk, can you start us with a prayer and the pledge, please?
Thank you for bringing us together today in a spirit of generosity. May we honor one another by keeping an open mind. May we voice our truth and listen with an open heart. May we discern your will to unite in fruitful outcome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Beauregard?
Here.
Ms. Hamilton?
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara? Mr. Ogier?
Here.
Ms. Alves?
Here. Next item is open forum, non-agenda items only pursuant to 42-46-6, maximum 3 minutes per person. Thank you. Anyone else want to sign up for open forum? Mike?
Mike Clifford, 489 Black Plain Road. I just want to clarify something. I thought when you did your decision on the open public forum at the beginning and the end of the meeting, you said you were going to keep it the way it was. But if somebody wanted to speak during the meeting, they could raise their hand. And if there was anybody on the council who wanted to hear their point of view or ask or allow them to ask a question, then a vote would be taken by the board. So did I understand that right or wrong?
I know in some cases we have opened it up depending on the topic, but I think for the majority, because we do it in the beginning and the end, we were going to try and get away from during the middle, so that way we can kind of keep it going.
I think it's still in your rules of order that way.
Okay, I'll let them.
But can we, just check, because I've noticed some meetings, and I don't know, maybe it is a special meeting, but you've recognized some people taking a vote and let them speak, and when I raise my hand, I just don't get any opportunity.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
So if we could check that. And secondly, I'd like to suggest a change in your rules of order. I know that some people feel the meetings go very long and too long, and I sometimes agree with that. But I think there used to be a process in place that was more stringent than what you have now. When somebody asks to put an item on the agenda, at least in the school department, I believe they're still doing it, because that's the most recent one I've been to, but when I was on the school committee a couple of years ago, if somebody wanted to speak, they had to prepare a form and submit it to the clerk with all the backup material, so that you had it in your packet the week before the meeting, the Friday before the meeting. And then you won't have to listen to someone go on with a presentation for 45 minutes that you've already read, and you'll be able to jump right into the questions or can ask for clarification. But to act with nothing in front of you, that's why it was done the way we did it, because you have to have the information in front of you so you can ask intelligent questions. And I don't believe at the last meeting, when you approved the $8,000 expenditure for the water line study, I think, I looked online, on the digital clerk-based agenda, and by discussion, you couldn't click it on it, so there was nothing in there. So I'm assuming you had nothing in there in your packets either. And I think that was a problem, because when you make a decision based on a presentation that night with no concrete information in front of you, sometimes, and many times, I think you have a tendency, or at least I do, to think, oh, wait a minute, I should have asked these 5 questions after the fact, after you've had time to absorb it. But when people come in and give you a presentation and a song and dance, and then you just act on it, you don't really have you haven't had first of all, you haven't seen it before the meeting. You have no documents in front of you that you can, look at. And the more I thought about that particular project, the more I think there's a lot of questions that weren't asked that should have been asked. And I don't think that is any great deal. And when you have your hearing on it or whatever, I'll speak to it then. But I'd like to know for sure, would one of you please find out, where has that ever been done, that a municipality put in a water line for an area of the town without any commitment from any developers that they were going to build an industrial park there or something? I know they do it when there's an industrial park, and then they get paid back as the land is sold and the deal works out with the seller. But I can't see, if you just bring water into that area, do you really think that those people are then going to leave, and who are they now, and sell the property and somebody else is gonna move in that's a lot better, I don't see it happening. And I also don't think you can do anything without sewers. I think it's a joke to think you're gonna do something without sewers. So anyway, I think that you really should have given that some more thought, I think, before you acted on it. And if you put that policy in place where they have to give you a packet, and it has to be in your pocket on Friday, otherwise you don't even talk about it. It'll save you a lot of time. Last thing, it's only 2 seconds. I asked I guess the administrator's not here. Can somebody tell me when will the audit be finalized? It is final? Oh, has it been sent into the state? Is it what you sent me last week and it says draft, is that the final?
That's not the draft, but the final stuff. Yeah,
Okay, because it's not on the website at the state and,
yeah, I don't know how long.
okay, could we put it up on the town website so people can access that? I'd like to,
Well, we haven't seen it yet either, so.
I'd like to see if it was a draft. I mean, if it changed from the draft or if it's,
I'm sure there was some changes, but yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
have it posted.
All right, thank
and
you.
that was late, by the way,
All right, thank you.
for the record.
All right, next item, North Smithfield Town Council sitting as Board of License Commissioners, discussion by council vote or other action on special event liquor license Class F DBA Blackstone Millville, St. Andre Bessette, Knights of Columbus Council number 15829, LLC located at Divine Mercies Parish Center, St. Paul Street, March 16, 2024. Madam Clerk, you said they're not attending, right? Okay. But everything is in order? And this is their annual? Okay. Anyone like a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Next item is discussion by council vote or other action on payment of bills. I do have a couple of questions. I guess my first question is, are we not getting that sheet anymore in the front that tells us what department and,
Marie, I didn't know Marie didn't add that, so I'll make sure that that's added going forward. I had mentioned that that was supposed to be something that gets added every meeting, or every payment of bills, rather. I'll make sure that gets added permanently.
so do you review these then, if you didn't?
No, because I review the invoices themselves, and I only usually review any invoices that are sent to me through email.
Okay. All right, so my next question is number 10, renewal by Anderson, the 4756 for windows. Is that for the school or?
That's for the old town hall through the historic. I think that's
Oh,
managed
that's
through
that, the
Rich.
replacement of the window.
Mm-hmm.
Number 68, Tasca for $2,341. Is that, it says Explorer repair, is that an insurance or is that just mechanical repairs?
That was through insurance. That was part of that was portion of it through, that was handled as an insurance claim.
And then on, I'm not sure what page it is, but it's number like 118 to 156, for an example, when we have different companies like Lowe's, Allegiance Trucks, and it all just says blanket PO.
What number?
How do you keep track of something like that?
What number was it? Oh, there's different numbers?
Yeah, it's.
So Marie will usually, anytime there's a blanket PO, every time it gets deducted from the blanket PO, she will physically write on the original or concurrently deduction from that PO, from that blanket.
So with us just getting a P&L last meeting, are the department heads aware of how much is remaining on these blanket POs? Like how do you like regulate
Keep
this,
track.
or how do you keep track of it?
So that should be that's something that I discuss. Once they start reaching the limits of whatever that account is, I'll start or once they reach a certain point, if they're past that, I'll reach out to them, or I'll just stop approving their PO requests, and I'll sit down with them. I've done it with sewer. I've done it with DPW. I haven't had to do it with police yet, as far as I know.
So let me just go one more step, because if we're not really doing P&Ls or anything, how do we know that this blanket PO is getting to that point? Like, how are you regulating it?
Because so Marie will let me know once it's cleaned out, and if there's, say there's a blanket PO that's been finalized, and then the department head puts in another request, she'll come to me, and then either she'll talk to the department head, or I will, one or the other, if it's something major or not.
All right, one more question on this. So when is this blanket PO, when is the expense hitting? Is it hitting when they actually open the PO or when it's closed?
So if it's a blanket PO, it hits the encumbrance, and then it gets expensed once the council approves it. Once we send out the check. It switches from encumbrance to expense.
Can I ask a question? So on that vein, Anthony, let's say there's $100 left in the blanket PO. Are you notifying the department that they're down that much? You know?
No, because
So-
it's department heads. It's not my job to make sure that they're, like, yes, I have to double check their work, make sure they're not overspending. But they have to manage their own budget. Once they, like I had just said in the example, that they want to spend $400 out of that blanket PO and there's only $100 left, well, if that comes to me, then I'll deny it and I'll have a discussion with them, either me or Marie will have a discussion with them.
Well, I don't understand if they're aware of it and Marie's talking to them, how could it get to that point where they wouldn't know how much is in that PO?
I'm just saying as a hypothetical.
Are you sending them a monthly?
Yeah, we send them a monthly expenditure report, but usually it doesn't get to, I'm just saying as a hypothetical. I'm not saying that happens. It has, of course, but there's a lot of blanket POs that the department heads have to manage.
So can I ask a question just real quick? And I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but if they are getting a budget variance report, I guess I don't understand how they can get to the point where the PO is denied.
Right. That's
And what happens if they've already purchased something? Who's approving the purchase?
They're not purchasing something without our approval.
It just
If
seems like
if
it's a
something-
little early in the year for us to.
Was that?
I mean, I know we're not too early in the year, but we're only like halfway through the fiscal year, a little over. It just seems like we're really, for us to burn out of POs and DPW and other areas, it seems like we're not
So blanket
communicating.
POs, this has only really happened with the one like with Hallowell. This doesn't
Okay.
happen with any other blanket POs. This has only happened with a blanket PO that we applied for something like with Hallowell, where the funds that we've set aside for this project have been pulled already, and now we have to look for other sources. So obviously the DPW might not know that we've reached to that point because there's so many other invoices coming through that. So he pushes something through, it's reached a cap. Now I have to talk to him about it and say, hey, where are we going to find sources of funds for this?
Okay.
Can I-
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right, so, Anthony, back on January 16th, we had asked for having a running tally of expenditures year-to-date so that we know how far we are in the budget. And we don't have that. We don't have these are not numbered, so it's pretty tricky. We don't have the thing on top that shows us what department it is. It's really hard for me, I don't know how others feel, to approve payment of $3,675,000 without knowing what's in the line items for that and how far we are and.
I mean, that's not something that's been provided before and it's been approved in the past. I get that's,
No, but we've asked for several times year-to-date, and if you're giving a monthly to
But that's
departments,
new,
can
though.
we have that?
yeah, the request that you're having is new, and you guys have approved payment of bills prior to that without any issue. So, yeah, I did agree to having that, and I didn't have time to make it. So, because it does require a lot of manipulation through
no.
Excel to make this.
If you're giving the department heads, give it to us. Make an extra copy, an extra 5. Really, that's it.
So right now it's February 20th. Do you want the one that would have been sent out on February 1st?
Sure,
The expenditure report?
yeah. If
Sent
we
out,
get it-
okay.
We're
at
in the
least if we can get
same
it monthly.
month, sure,
Okay.
yeah.
Because that's not really extra work for me. It's just a duplication of what we already create.
Well, I'm going to go on record as saying that I don't think I'm feeling comfortable approving anything going forward. I'll do it this time
Right. Right.
because I don't want to hold up payments, I don't want anybody to say we're holding them up and, we're supposed to not have any cash flow issues and.
Yeah,
so
we definitely don't
should
have
go
cash flow
ahead.
issues in North Smithfield, so that's a plus.
So we should be much more, it should be tightened up much more.
Yeah, I mean,
so
has
that-
there been issues in the past with payments going to like the wrong things? I don't think that there's been in the past that the council hasn't approved a payment of bills, right?
Well, I don't care what happened in the past, I'm telling you, going forward, unless we start getting some information that we've asked for, I'm not going to be approving them. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Can I,
What is it, I'm a little lost, what is it exactly that you're looking for? Basically, like a checkbook at home to see what we're spending now and what we have left in the bank?
yeah, so, may I, if you're done, I think how I'm interpreting it, and I want to clarify too, is if it's a blanket PO, and Tony, if it's a blanket PO and say it's for Hallowell, right, we approve those projects knowing that there's money to fund those projects. So
Correct.
a blanket PO is very misleading in the memo line itself because we don't know what that entails. But if it's tied to a project or to an account with money in it, we should know how much money is left in there, because then we may not have cash issues, but it seems like then we're struggling to figure out what account to hit because everything else is so tightly accounted for. So I agree. I think having that additional information would just be helpful,
Yeah,
especially as we get into the budget season.
Yeah, and I can definitely have Marie clarify what blanket POs, for example, number 67, wraps auto body. I can, instead of saying blanket PO, I can have her say what the services were provided, or what, auto body parts were needed. I don't know. Instead of just saying blanket PO. So that's something I can change to going forward. But yeah, I can send whatever the latest expenditure report that gets sent out to department heads, I can add that to this.
The McGovern commercial, line 192 through 194, I'm assuming that's all capital, the cruisers and stuff?
Yeah, that was something that was approved, I think, in August, if I remember correctly. Council had approved that, and one of them was an insurance.
And then water and sewer, the Wright Pierce Engineering preliminary plans for, I'm assuming that's St. Paul Street?
St. Paul Street, yeah.
Is that a project we have going on? Like, what is that?
That's something that Bill has, he's doing research into St. Paul Streets for how much work that's for a capital project for later on.
Isn't that the grant, isn't that for the grant? The St. Paul Street grant? I'm sorry.
I can ask him I can go back and ask him if you want.
I know what it's for, that, just, that's a big dollar amount, yeah.
I think this is, well, we don't have anything for grants in our packet? I
No,
don't think.
nothing.
Well, if we did, maybe we could see that I believe that's the 2 million or whatever, how much it was for
Yeah.
the St. Paul Street, and they're doing some preliminary engineering work. I believe that's what this is, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question, Tony? I know on the front here, it says, submit questions a minimum of 48 hours before, but a lot of times, we don't get these till late Thursday, and you know, I
Even
look
if
at
it's-
it, but then I do a more
Yeah.
thorough analysis over the weekend, and then it's really Monday by the time I'm gonna get an answer back. So
Yeah.
is it possible to at least get, like, it a little earlier even, the payment of bills, so that we
It
can
should
at
be,
least see it?
it's up to Joanne. Don't want to put you on the spot.
Or even a draft? Or even a draft, because if we don't get them by, I mean, it just, I feel like a lot of these questions could have been answered in advance.
Joanne,
I-
you usually get it by, the deadline's midday Thursday, right?
It's Wednesday.
Midday Wednesday.
Can you put your thing on, please?
I do put it on the agenda because I'm aware they're coming.
Yeah.
But that usually holds up my packet to go to clerk base because I don't have the actual bills to link by Thursday.
But once you get that's basically one of the last things, whatever. if
That's
there's
usually
other
what I'm
stuff going
waiting
on.
for.
Yeah,
But I'm not getting it till Thursday at 1 o'clock.
okay.
So it would be helpful to you to get it earlier, and it would be helpful to us to get it earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, we
I
can,
can-
yeah, I'll make sure that that's earlier then, because I think what she's trying to do is she's trying to get every single invoice in that still keeps coming
Yeah.
from the department heads, because they never stop.
Yeah, but maybe
So-
put a cutoff.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah,
close
yeah.
process for the packet, and
Yeah.
say if it's not in by Friday, you're not getting it in.
Right.
If it's that long of a reconciliation
For most of the
process.
department heads, they understand that, but sometimes they're like, oh, can we get it in there? Can you just put it in? Yeah. So I think that's what's trying to be done, is we're trying to pay as many as possible so that we're not over the 30-day limit of paying vendors. But, yeah, this can be sent out as, earlier than what you guys get it, so that we can reach within the 48 hours of questions.
Thanks, Tony.
Yep.
Tony, I just have another question. I don't know what, it's line 112 through 115. These Rhode Island State Building Commissions, and they go back to October, November, December, and January. Why are we paying 4 months at a time?
You said 112 to 115?
112, or 112 to
David, did you see I
115.
sent it to you?
Those were, I think that was with zoning, building and zoning, they just weren't being done. I think they were caught up with work. I think that has to do with Vivian. They just weren't being done. And then she caught up with all of them all at once, and they were given to us, so.
Does anyone have any more questions? Anyone have any more questions? Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the payment of the bills for a total of $3,675,008.35.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, I'd like to ask something. Are we going to make it a practice to try to get bills if they have to be in at a certain time, if not, so that people submitting them will know that after this time, so they're not late? What do you think about that, right?
What do you mean?
Okay, if a bill is due within a certain time for our meeting, and departments, through whatever, cannot get it in, sometimes it's impossible, especially with things coming down from the state, et cetera, and other billing that's coming in. So if they know there's a deadline, there'll be maybe a greater effort, and if not, there's an explanation why.
Are you saying paying it prior to the council
Well,
approval?
Well, when it's due. If paperwork doesn't always flow the way it should. And if it doesn't, they have to be made aware that if this does not come in, whatever you have, put it in, even though it's not complete. So you have you know what we can do at that time. And they will be made aware of it.
Are you talking about the vendors submitting whatever they have?
Yeah, whatever they've submitted by the time that it comes to the council. Each department will have to try to meet or be at the meeting to say why it isn't being done.
Well, you can't control when a
Accountability.
vendor submits an invoice, right?
No,
Yeah,
you
I
can't
mean, a
rely on the
vendor,
vendor.
they know, the vendors know when to send, they don't know when we pay them. A lot of them, I get questions all the time as to why a bill isn't paid, and I have to explain the fact that we have to get council approval.
It's like paying a charge card. You have a date you have to meet, otherwise you pay interest or something.
Right, right. Yeah, and sometimes, but a lot of them, I can get around us having to pay fees for being over
And
that
it
amount.
doesn't fall on you, it falls on the
does.
people that are submitting all this.
Well, it falls on me.
Well, it does, but it shouldn't.
But yeah, we can, I mean, there's, the department heads know that there's a deadline. They usually know by Wednesday. Sometimes they try to, like, you know, like I was just saying with Joanne, they try to push more in there because it's an emergency or they need it paid or there's a project that needs to continue. They don't want, you know, a payment being held up for 30 days. But,
Can we pay bills more than once a month,
yeah, we can't, but that's up to council.
That's an idea.
right? Why
Yeah.
Why not?
If other communities probably,
Other communities
that.
don't do a payment of bills. They just pay them.
well then maybe we can try twice a month and have it fewer and get them paid more quickly.
Does it make it harder for you twice a month?
I will talk with Marie and see how that would affect her current workflow. I think
Okay.
that'd be a great thing to try.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I would imagine, Tony, too, you could then say to a vendor, like, Friday's the deadline. If you don't get it in,
It'll be-
if it doesn't get this one, you can get the second time at the
Yeah.
second meeting.
Usually they like if a vendor's reaching out to me, it's because, well, hey, I haven't received payment in 2 weeks, so I tell them, well, you got another 2 weeks to wait.
Right.
So-
Yeah, I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, that'd be, yeah, if council is willing to allow me to do that, then yeah. I just have to see if it's willing to, if Marie can make that work within her current workflow.
Okay, with the
and we can make it
feasibility of
work
the
within our
staff that you
department.
have.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Roll call.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes,
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action on consent agenda. All items listed in this section are considered in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless the councilor requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. A, town council minutes of January 2nd, 16th, 25th, and February 5th of '24. And communications, Animal Control Monthly Report for January 2024, North Smithfield Municipal Court Monthly Report for January 2024, North Smithfield Police Department Monthly Report for January 2024, and North Smithfield Fire and Rescue Monthly Report for 2024. Anyone like to remove anything? I'm going to ask to remove the minutes of February 5th. Did anyone want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, less those items, that item?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, less the February 5th minutes.
second that motion.
There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes,
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. So on the minutes of February 5th, so on the unused Economic Development Commission budget funds, that paragraph, Joanne? Sorry, maybe that's okay. No, I'm sorry, next, down to penalties and adjustments. Can you just put, Mrs. Perry explained there is no recourse to go after any tangibles, and can you just write, or any tangible, can you just write taxes due to town?
I have a question about, as far as the taxation of, their equipment. Can we set up a law that no,
That's
we
not
can't.
on the agenda.
I can't
I don't
ask
think we
that?
can talk.
Okay, we'll put it on the next one then.
And then on the third page, halfway down, City of Woonsocket to negotiate an updated water supply agreement. So, Mr. Biragad stated he's willing to meet with Woonsocket, and then the town administrator, Zelinski, offered to meet as well, along with someone from the water department. And could you say also, either myself or Mr. Ogier would accompany them on these meetings, depending on scheduling? And then just for a note for your next agenda for updates, your update section, can you just add, we were gonna find out what other towns do in regards to this, the enterprise, the Economic Commission Fund, how other communities handle that. We're gonna get an update on that, so can you just add that to your updates? The Economic Commission, that loan we have, how it would work and how we're gonna come up with policies. And then there was also, and then also an update on how other towns would handle the collection of unpaid tangibles. We're gonna look into that.
That's the word.
That's all I have. Anyone else? Anyone wanna make a motion to approve the minutes of February 5th with those amendments?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 5th as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes, thank you. Old business discussion by council vote or other action on grant requests. The first one is to meet grant writers and protocols. Is there any update on that?
So, obviously, CJ isn't here. So, since he wasn't here to facilitate the Zoom meeting with you guys, we were just going to table it for next meeting, for the next council meeting, for the council to sit with, to Zoom with the grant writers.
So March 4th, that's a definite.
Yeah, I've already reached out to them. But I didn't want to assume that I could do it and then it not work,
Okay.
technology-wise.
So are we going to make sure that, is that going to be like a long meeting, or do we have to make sure that meeting's shorter, or is it just going to be a short introduction, or do we know?
It's at how, I mean, whatever the council, whatever you guys think, however long that conversation is going to be. If you guys want to start earlier, you can. If you guys want to start at the same time and then have the meeting run longer, it's up to Joanne too.
Can we just try and keep that agenda, we'll try and keep it a little bit tighter for that purpose. Discussion by council vote or other action on status/progress report on completion of specific items. Facility manager,
No update.
Hollowell Review Committee,
There's no update on that one. The next committee meeting is in March.
Human Resource Manager, no update yet.
I have a question on that one.
Yep.
This one has been, how long has it been on the agenda rolling over? What's happening with this? Why is there no movement on this?
Because it's taken time to draw up the description.
Almost a year now.
Yep, just like Facilities Manager too.
So, we have this position, part-time position, but, so do we have, what's being, my question is, what's being done though? Has anybody looked for a part-time manager? Do we have any idea what we're looking for? It just keeps getting rolled over every meeting, but so what's happening?
It's getting rolled
with
over
it?
because there's certain job duties that we need to draw up this description, so it's taking time.
And is that being done though?
Yes, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Municipal Building Review Task Force, not really any update. We have a meeting, I believe it's the 29th.
28. You'll never get.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of the other one, the 28th.
Yeah, 2/28 at 6:45.
And that's here, right?
That's here.
Okay. NS Town
What
website.
date?
228.
Yeah, just a quick update. It's moving along. The launch date is still scheduled for the end of February. We're wrapping up some things on the IT side and going over some feedback as well in preps for that launch. But yep, it's moving along nicely, so hopefully it should be
Can I
alive.
ask a quick question? Did you get a lot of feedback from the community or from the alpha, beta, or
Yeah,
delta people, whatever they were?
Yeah, we got a few.
Yeah.
So Tony and I and Allie, who's our project manager, will continue to work through that. And you may not see everything at once, but there's still like a lot of cleanup of old documents and stuff. So I would say once it goes live, if people come across something, it's really easy to update. So I would say we'll communicate maybe how that should go and be able to be updated. But yeah, trying to work through it all. So, but the feedback we did get was good. Like embedding the YouTube video into the website, that's something we're looking at. So you don't have to leave the page, and how links are organized and stuff like that. So yeah, the feedback was good.
And I'm sorry, did you say an approximate kickoff date or?
But yeah, the pending any issues, the go live date I think is 2/28 at 10 a.m. So, but with any IT project that could change, but it would be like a week or so. It wouldn't be like a month or anything. So,
Thank you.
Is that it? New business, discussion by council vote or other action on abatements / supplementals, Ms. St. George.
I'm subbing in again. So we have $41.31. It was a deed that was misprocessed, so it's coming to us.
So I'll make a motion to approve a supplemental for $41.31 for a deed that was misprocessed.
That's a
Second.
motion, second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action on change order number 4 for Hollowell School demolition project, Mr. Pendergast.
Jumping in again. So he asked if it could be tabled to the next meeting as he's waiting on more data to come in for it.
Discussion by council vote or other action on sewer department's upcoming budget and sewer use rate, Mr. Dory.
I'm here representing you.
Okay.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Dan Becker, second newest on the commission. It's following up on his last presentation. Let me just start off by saying, reiterating our goals are to build the fund as in the ordinance, plan ahead, try to keep surprises at a minimum for the users. We want to be forthright, we want to be honest and fair with everybody. The last numbers mentioned was about $800 we were looking at for a rate. Some further number crunching has brought that down to $724 for the year. That would be self-funding. That would get us started on our 15-year plan to meet that 25% and would allow us to fund the current 5-year capital expenditures that we have already planned for. Just to put some of this in perspective, I did look at the latest user rate survey that the Narragansett Bay Commission puts out every year. The current average is $700 a year. As you know, our rate is at $560. When we first started talking about this, I'd been on the commission about 6 months or so, and that's when the first presentation of the rate surveys I had seen. And one of the things that stuck out to me kind of shows what we're trying to avoid, and that was Jamestown. Now, it's interesting, Jamestown had a rate in 2017 of $767. They went up about $100 to $860 in 2019, but in 2020, they bumped it to $1,290. So obviously something happened there, and we don't want that. That's what we're trying to avoid. They are right now at $1,553 a year. So that's a 102% increase from 2017 to 23. That's what we're trying to avoid. The other one I did look at was Burrillville, because we've had some people presenting how Burrillville runs their system. I fortunately got to speak to one of their commissioners last night, just happened to be last night, and some of the information we've been getting isn't quite accurate as to how they're handling their system. They actually do have an enterprise fund. They are actually in the same position we're in. They're looking for money on how they're going to expand things. They're trying to figure out how they're going to budget for their maintenance, improvements, so on and so forth. The difference is they also have their own processing plant. So DEM puts other requirements on them. Currently, their rate is $664, and he did mention they have been intentionally trying to gradually raise it so they're ahead of the curve and they can meet their demands. They're thinking the same way we're thinking. You're looking at climate change, you're looking at excess water in the system. We just had that discussion at the last meeting. There are two areas that were mentioned that they came real close to overflowing, and we'd been in trouble if that had happened. So going forward, one of the, I believe Mr. Dory had mentioned we could possibly use a loan to soften the blow on some of this. And looking at those numbers, you have a 10-year, 20-year, and 30-year loan. We're personally against extending beyond 10 years. I don't think that's fair. It starts to interfere with your ability to plan the next 5 years of projects, which would actually, by the time you got around to that, you'd be looking at about 8 years out from now to where you'd want to implement it. A $4 million loan would allow us to cover the current 5-year plan. It gets it done. Everything, the major concerns are handled, and it allows us to build towards that 25% fund balance that we need over the next 15 years. And that rate happens to come in at $664, which interestingly enough is what Burrillville's charging right now. So we think that's kind of the best plan. It's basically $8.67 a month increase when you look at it that way. If you did go out to 20 years, you're making it a little bit easier on people at $610, and if you went out to 30 years, you're at $594. But the problem is you start overlapping the loans. And as we started to think about it, you get the 10-year loan, you get the projects done now, you get your fund balance built. By the time you're into the next 5-year planning, you're at about 8 years. You only have 2 years left on this loan. If you then needed another loan to take care of the next 5 years, you can do that, and then you're pretty much done because you've met your 15-year mark for building up the 25% savings that you want. So we're thinking the best of both worlds, the least increase to the ratepayers, using the infrastructure bank, a $4 million loan. The actual total interest comes out to about $735,000 on the $4 million loan. And it just makes it easier, and it'll make planning much easier for the sewer commission as we go forward. So that's kind of where we're at. He asked me to ask you for just kind of what you're thinking, not answers or how you're feeling about any of this. We just feel it's very important that the sewer commission starts to set a precedent where you're planning for these things. Because the other thing that did come up, our engineers mentioned, as we were talking about the next 5 years and what kind of things we would be looking at, he did mention lining some of the pipes could possibly be an issue coming in the next 10 years or so. that starts to get expensive, but then you gotta understand, you're looking at, 50-year infrastructure or more. So these are just things that, never were planned for, and now we're trying to make the correction. It's gonna happen, it needs to happen in a kind of a short period of time, but I think going forward, it makes it easier for everybody. The users would be able to budget well, there'd be no surprises, and it puts us on a stable system to handle these things. Because the other option, obviously, is do nothing, but then you're into bonding, if you needed to, special assessments, nobody's happy with that kind of a thing. So that's pretty much where we're at this point.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm just a little confused, I apologize. So the 724 number that you gave us at the beginning,
Yes.
is that an additional 724, or does that
No.
just move up to 7?
No.
Is that, so we're looking at going from 560 to 724?
Yes, if we were to fund it ourselves, to do
Yeah.
it that way, yes.
To me, it doesn't make sense to take out a loan. I mean, granted, it's a bit of it's $164, but to
Right.
take out a loan and pay that kind of interest.
You're right, but the rate would also be increasing from that point. Well, I think the first 3 years it wouldn't have to, and it might possibly come down. But I think to have the option of the loan, it's not a line of credit, but I would look at it as a line of credit, kind of an imaging, a process. And I think it would make it easier even for the council as we come forward and say, okay, here's where we're at. To just have that in place, have that introduction with the infrastructure bank too, if something did come up where you had an emergency. It's like, okay, we need more money, kind of a thing. It would make it easier than, going to a town vote and bonding everything.
Yeah.
But it is up to you. I mean, our initial thoughts were, yeah, sure, self-fund it. But there really is advantages if we took just a 10-year loan, softened the blow a little bit, and it makes the planning easier. That's our opinion. Now, we have our meeting tomorrow night, so we're going to be discussing this more, fleshing it out a little bit more, but that's where we're thinking at the moment.
So excuse me if I'm dumbing it down a little bit.
No,
But
no.
if it sounds like you're taking out a loan to put money in the bank.
To a certain degree, it's going to be spent for this initial 5 years. What we have in the plans that we need to get done in this 5-year plan, that's really what the money's going to be used for. It'll be paid off with the increased rate in the 10 years. And that then puts us just about the right timing for doing the next 5-year planning. Because you're always going to have stuff coming up. It's just going to happen. So that's how we're looking at it. But yeah, it's up to you. Like I said, our initial thinking was, yeah, let's just do it ourselves. That would be nice. And the only other thing, and excuse me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but putting it in a loan situation, it removes any possible issues that may come along if a newer town council decides, we don't want to see your rates go up. Now we're stuck, and we're right back to the very thing we're trying to avoid. So we're trying to set an example for the sewer commission and a process that no matter who's where, our sewer system is going to be maintained properly. And at this moment, we think of taking a small loan, a 10-year loan, setting up that kind of a process makes it more stable, if that helps you understand.
No, it does, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, how long have you been on?
Since August of '22.
Oh, you're doing a great job.
Well, thanks. I've been in such positions before and other things, and I crunch numbers.
So
Sure.
you're basically saying with this option here, you're gonna push on $165 rate increase onto the users, correct? Plus, going forward, any additional
It should-
increases over the years, so.
Over the years, but it should stabilize the rate for, I believe, the first 3 years, was it something like that? So it would stabilize it. But yeah, again,
That's a big hit for,
it's a big hit, but at the same time, like I said, that's a yearly rate.
right, but then you also have your regular taxes and everything else, but
I
You know, I
understand
mean,
that, but.
that's a lot to,
Well, it is, but if I may go back to some of my history, when the Dowling Village thing was coming in, I took a look at the tax rates that happened in this state through 13 different towns, and I looked at it over 30 years. And it was very interesting that every town that didn't gradually raise their rates, this is what happened. Forster was the worst. The next one was Woonsocket. They got walloped 25%, I believe it was, in 1 year. It was just because they didn't just gradually do it. And unfortunately, that's what we're up against. If we don't do it now, it's going to have to happen at some point. If we do a lesser rate, we can still take a loan, but we're not going to be building the capital fund. I mean, it's not a popular thing, but at the same time, you're talking $8.67 a month additional cost when you're looking at $664.
Well,
That's it.
You're the accountants. Let me ask you a question. Couldn't we technically, instead of having such an emergency fund, if we just increased without taking out the loan, couldn't we, if there was an emergency, they could take that money from our reserves, and then the users of the system, the sewer system, could end up paying that back at interest-free?
I don't know what's in the, I don't know what's in the fund.
So that's what he was saying that the 724 would be. The 724 rate would be self-funding these projects while also contributing to the unrestricted fund balance.
We have to build the fund balance while we're doing the repairs.
By charter.
But can I ask about that, Dr. Becker?
Yeah.
So the 25% fund balance is
In the
And-
ordinance.
in the ordinance.
Yeah.
Can the ordinance be changed to reduce that amount
Well,
so
that's-
we can protect? I mean, I'm
that's-
just trying to
I
think
think
of,
Paula, I think I asked that question a while ago.
you asked that, did I miss it?
No, I don't think it was up for discussion at the time. I
Okay.
think the idea from the sewer commission was to keep it at 25%.
Okay,
But I think it's a self-imposed target. I mean, ours is
Oh, okay,
what,
right,
12 to 16%? And
No,
the
the
sewer-
ordinance for
This-
us, unfortunately,
Hold on a
reads-
second. Hold on a second. Your fund balance target is different than our target, which is what I'm explaining now.
Yeah.
So ours is 12 to 16% of the overall budget. So, I mean, we could look at it.
Right, well, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, I'm just trying to explore, a variety of ways to the same end, right? So the 25% that is on the books right now, is there any leeway? Would we be able to look at that and reduce that from 25 to 20 or 25 to 18 or whatever, so that we're not creating so much of an increase,
Well, that's up to you, and we have discussed, when we looked at the fund balance, we looked at, 10, 15, 20, 25%. And we just felt that if the ordinance was put in back then, they had good reasons. In fact, Mr. Dory mentioned that it specifically notes in the ordinance, the expense of reconstruction or rehabilitation capital assets in an enterprise fund can be prohibitive unless an adequate reserve has been accumulated in the fund for the purposes of reconstruction and rehabilitation. And I do remember reading something about where that number came from, some kind of a standard somewhere. Personally, the commission, when we were looking at this, wouldn't want to go much below 15%, because it just gets more expensive every year to deal with this stuff. And like I said, if we do end up getting into relining pipes, well, now you got that's a whole nother ballgame. You're not just, replacing a pump here and there for $300,000. You're into, some millions, because it's expensive.
I don't think anybody's arguing about there not needing to be a fund balance or a reserve account for
No,
the
I
sewer.
understand that, it's the amount.
Right,
Yeah.
but, you just said it yourself, these ordinances have been around for a while, and this is really an asset management, problem here. We haven't been reserving the money for whatever reason, because if we did, we wouldn't even need to talk about the loan. And taking out a loan in today's interest rate environment is, you're probably paying more in interest than you could have done if you did it a few years ago, which is, is now the time, the right time. I think, it's the first time we're hearing this updated information, so I don't think you're
Well,
asking for an
that's-
action tonight, so
No,
definitely need to
it's
process it a
just,
little more.
this is, just keeping you informed. This is where our discussion is going. I mean, the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank is what, 2.1%, something like that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what's the rate?
3.5.
3.5 now?
It was, if I remember correctly, it was really low.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not, you're
Not
not
like
going down the
8%,
bank today,
right, yeah,
so.
gotcha.
But I know it's a tough sell. We've talked about how we could communicate with the ratepayers to let them know what we're trying to do. Mail them a letter, hi, we're your sewer commission, just thought you'd like to know, kind of thing. But we'd really hate to see us try to save $1 today just because it seems more comfortable when it's only, our feeling is it's ultimately going to come back to hurt you at some point. Somewhere the rates are going to have to get in line with what it's actually costing to run the system. And if you're looking at Burville, who has their own treatment plant, and they're already at what we would be at with a loan, that kind of tells you. And they're struggling because, like I said, DEM put some additional requirements on just what they got to take out of their system. He was telling me that they put in a new sand system to take out phosphorus, I think it was too. They had an excess phosphorus, and they realized they could take out some copper, and DEM said, oh great, we'll take out the copper. And so they did that, and it came out really well. And now DEM is like, well, you did that, now we can take out this, that, and the other thing. They're looking at issues with having to raise the caps over where the pumps and stuff are because of the water levels that are being happening now. There's no denying, I used to joke that we were safe here in New England from all the flooding rains you were seeing out there in the Mississippi Basin and stuff. Well, this year just proved that we're no longer safe from that. And at the last meeting, the super did mention there were 2 stations that came real close to overflowing. And now you're into fines and penalties if that happens. So it's just, I know it's a tough sell, but I think if you're honest with the people, I'd like to believe they're realistic about stuff. That's all I'm saying. But I understand it's up to you. This is where we're at. We're going to be meeting tomorrow night, going over it some more. If there's any message you want me to relay, I'd be happy to do that. Or feel free to come on along. We have great meetings. Hardly anybody shows up.
I
They
think,
might after they see this.
if I may, Madam President, I just have one more thing for you guys to consider, and then a question for Tony or whoever. I think it would be beneficial to at least explore further what a fund balance target would look like, considering that's old data, right? You said it was determined years ago that 25% was the ideal target, and determine what number could be comfortable at. If it is 25, then at least go down that exercise again. But in terms of what I heard earlier, so the idea of taking out the loan was to also build the reserve account. I think that,
Well, the loan wouldn't build the account.
no, but you
Just
would
the
be
rate
building
would
at the
allow
same
us-
time, but
Right.
what plan, like there's no plan in front of us, what plan would guarantee that that reserve account is going to be built?
Because, I mean.
Other
that
than
goes
us just
into the-
saying, we're gonna take out a loan, we're gonna do all
it
these
goes into the
things, and we're
budget.
gonna build
I mean,
it.
That would be, that's part of your budget. The rate becomes
Right,
part of your
but
budget.
is there an ordinance mechanism that we need to put in place to guarantee that that's gonna be funded, like?
Well, it's not, the ordinance already says, this is how much, it's 25%. It's built by 3 months of operations, and I forgot some odd person, I think it's like 15% of depreciated assets. But essentially, we're following that. It's no different than back when the general fund didn't meet the fund balance. We had to have a line item in the budget that said contingency/fund balance restoration. That's no different with the enterprise fund. you have to set money aside to put money into the fund balance. It's the same thing.
So we do it every year in the budget.
Mm-hmm. We don't do it now because we've met our target.
So
But
we're at the
sewer
25%?
commission-
No.
So
the sewer
what target are
commission
we
has
at?
I'm talking about the target for general fund. We've met our
Right, oh,
target.
so you're talking about, right, so that, okay, so that's my point though, right? There's an ordinance on the book and we're not doing it currently.
Well,
So what plan is that? I think for me, you asked what we would feel comfortable with.
Uh-huh.
Before I could vote on this, I would need to know what we're going to do to guarantee to the ratepayer that we are actually going to build that account, not just have an ordinance on the book, because that's great and all, but if we're not following it,
So
What's
what
the
it,
point?
right, and we can explore that, right?
yeah.
But back when the general fund and the council had to
Right,
contribute,
I know that, I was on the budget committee when that passed.
yeah. Was there like some type of, I just want to replicate that process for the sewer commission. Was there some type of,
The administrator at the time proposed it, and I
Okay.
wasn't on the council. I think, John, you were on the council, and Claire. But it was proposed, it went to the budget committee for review, and then the council ultimately voted on it. It was
okay,
a council decision.
okay.
If I remember rightly too, the 25% wasn't based on our needs, it was based on some accounting practice or principles from what I read.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, as far as guaranteeing, I mean, in the simplest form, it'd be leftover reserves after the budget. But to put a line item in the budget that this is what goes to it,
I mean, yeah, if that's supposed to be
absolutely.
happening, it's not. I just want to make sure we have a mechanism to guarantee that that's going to happen.
Right, and I mean, that's how we would feel, again, in just being upfront and fair with the users. I mean, it's.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
Okay.
the mechanism, so just the mechanism that we have currently, which is in the budget, which is currently being worked on, obviously, we essentially put a line item on the expense side.
For the
just like-
general fund is what you're talking about, right?
No, I'm talking about the
Okay, I
sewer
just want
commission.
to make sure I'm following.
Sorry.
That's a whiplash here.
Back and forth, back and forth. Same thing, what we did for the general fund, though, but we would do for the sewer fund, we would put a line item on the expense side that says, 300,000 for fund balance restoration. Essentially what we would, that's how that
Yeah,
gets
I just want to make sure
facilitated.
it's baked in so we don't,
Yeah.
it doesn't
and,
happen.
And the council would essentially, when it comes time for budget approval, the council would approve that you guys would see what that looks like. I've already done it for the sewer commission, but I could build two different options of one with a 10-year loan and one with self-funded and what that rate would look like, which is how they got the rate already. Obviously, it would be more accurate once it comes time due to putting in interest rates and stuff like that for other expenses. But that's how it would get presented to town council when the budget's ready to be decided on. It would be presented as, this is what it would look like with this rate, with this option, this is what it would look like with this option as well. If you want more prior to that, just tell me what you need and me and the sewer commission can work together to get that done.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Dr. Becker, I just want to agree with you, because if we don't do this now, we're going to run into the same things over the years that's coming up.
Yeah.
We never stayed ahead of the game, and when it got really bad, it hit us hard, because if we would have done it 10, 15, 20 years ago, it would have been a lot less.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're trying to stop this, and it's, I think, the logical thing to do. No one wants to see anything go up.
Well, right, and we're just, like I said, we're just, thinking of the future. I mean, I'm not gonna be on the commission forever, and the
I hope
other two
so.
people won't be. So at least we've set the process, that it's in place. It just becomes automatic to a certain degree, I mean, it's like having a manual. Here's your manual, this is what you gotta do, kind of a thing. So if no other questions or concerns, I would just like to say, regarding Cliff there, just a moment, in his mentioning of the water line, I did read about that you're doing it. I agree with him. My first thought was, if you're not gonna put a sewer line in, don't even waste your time.
No.
Don't even bother. I mean, it's a nice thought, and yeah, you can push a water line, small little pipe through the dirt. You're not gonna do that with a sewer line, and you're not gonna get the kind of investment into the properties down there if there isn't a sewer line. And yeah, it's not cheap, sorry.
But imagine what it would be, and if we do it now, imagine what that area could be. And you
Well,
have to wait.
that, and honestly, I know he's mentioned, and it's come up, the phase 2 and phase 3, but especially phase 2, finishing the rest of that pipe just up that section of 146, you're looking
Mr.
at.
Becker, I'm sorry, but we have to kind of stay on topic with
Oh,
this.
I'm sorry.
'cause
Okay.
It's not on the
Sure.
agenda.
No problem. Okay, I don't know, no,
we're all
okay,
set.
very good.
So I guess this would be, you'll be working with the budget committee on this, and then you'll kind of work with Tony and kind of come up with different plans that might be feasible or different considerations.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good meeting tomorrow.
Discussion by council vote or other action on addendum to contract by and between North Smithfield Fire and Rescue Service Repair, Inc. and Town of North Smithfield, July 1st, 2022 through July 30th, 2025. This is just, what's in your packet is basically just basically correction of the original budget, original contract that we approved that shows the additional 2 members of the minimum staffing, and then also shows the layout of the funding, just so everything is, because this is actually what we're doing now, correct, Tony? Correct, yeah. So it's just basically changing the contract we've already approved to make it accurate. And then, David, I just have one question. On the page that's attached, it says recitals, and it says dated. What is that date supposed to be? 'Cause it says, on this first page, and it says under recitals, it says dated, and it says AUST. What month is that supposed to be?
I'm not following where you are.
So you see,
Addendum.
yeah, the addendum part, recitals.
Oh, it was supposed to be August.
Okay,
That's supposed to be August.
okay. I wasn't sure if it was July or August.
Yeah, that's when it was originally, that was the first time it was approved, back in August of '22.
Okay. So, yeah, so this is just basically stating that they increased their minimum staffing, which we approved, and then the payment schedule that we're following now to what we've approved. That's all this is.
So you're looking for a motion?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the chief can't be here tonight because they have a board meeting, so,
And I will indicate that on the last page, the chairperson, and I see up on behalf of the president, Michael, is it Cropo? I don't know if he's still the president.
that's why they're having a board meeting today, because he's resigning, so they're
He
gonna
is.
have a new, I think they're electing
So
someone
I think the
tonight.
council should understand that that name is going to be changed in the paragraph, and there's going to be a new chairperson listed that's going to sign, if
Okay,
you approve it.
okay.
With that change.
Right. We don't know who those people are, who that president's going to be or who the chairperson's going to be.
Okay.
Okay, so this doesn't have to be read into the record, does it? Okay,
No, I think as long as the council approves it, subject to those 2, correction of date and having the appropriate person sign it
okay.
when they're elected.
All right, anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll ma-
this?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract between the town of North Smithfield and the North Smithfield Fire and Rescue Service, Inc., from July 1st, 22 through June 30th, 2025, with the following amendments. Under recitals, in that first paragraph, whereas AUST is changed to August 15th of 2022. And then on the last page, where it talks about the president and chairperson, those names to be updated based on tonight's election.
Second?
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
If you look at the, same thing where you were talking about recitals, if you look at whereas, it says the chief will have the discretion to assign these 2 additional full-time fire personnel to staff any emergency vehicles as needed. This was something that came up several times when we're having these discussions. These 2 positions, if they have to fill an overtime position, it shouldn't be grabbing these 2 people. They should be getting that money from their budget, not the 2 people that we, you know what I mean? So they should be going into their budget, paying people for overtime to fill those positions, so we don't, and then, like they normally would, had these 2 people not been there in the first place. And then, these two people would be, remain on the rescue. You follow what I'm saying? So I don't want to pay for these two people to come in just to staff, just to kind of give them extra staff so they don't have to fill overtime positions.
But this paragraph wasn't changed. This is what we originally, because the chief, oh, go ahead.
Well, I'll just try to remind the council, there was a lot of discussion back when this was being discussed about adding these two people to specifically be in charge of the second ambulance.
That's
The
right.
chief came to you and said, do not tie my hands that way. I will create the second ambulance, but I have to have the ability to put these people on a regular truck if I need to. And the council conceded that. So you already agreed to that. This is not part of a change. To go to the councilwoman's point, to the president's point, all that's being clarified is under the payment of services, those numbers, and the number of staff members. The total staff is 27 and 2 full-time. But that language about the chief has the discretion to assign the 2 full-time personnel to staff any emergency vehicle as needed was a negotiated compromise that's in the contract now. And it was back and forth. I'm just reminding you, that comment, you were very strong at that point, Councilman, and I think the chief convinced you that you could trust his judgment. I don't want to speak for the chief because he's not here, but this was not a contentious, but an important issue at the time, because it was a lot of money, $216,000 in the first year, then double the second year, and obviously triple the third year. That was a lot of money. That's $600,000 over 3 years. There was a lot of discussion about this, but the chief, and then don't forget, the chief also got caught with the fact that he had to put some people, he didn't have anybody from the fire school out. I think he had some fire school issues, and then he came in and explained that to you last year too. So a long way around the bond. Councilwoman's right, that language is not being, if you vote on this contract, you're not changing the language that you already approved in August of 2022. As to that, you are changing the numbers. You're changing the numbers to reflect what you all agreed to between August of 22 and when the chief came. You may recall last few, I don't know, was it 6 months ago? Last year, the chief came before you, and you didn't change the contract, but you gave him the money. I don't know if you could dig that up. You gave him the additional money, which was to make sure you got these people working to fund the fire school. I don't know if that makes any sense, if that helps you at all, but that's my recollection. I did talk to the chief about this when we were changing the language.
Yeah, because part of these payments was that the budget committee had only approved 6 months. So that's why these numbers change, because it's not a full year. So when we go this year, it's going to be a full year because they were only budgeted for half a year. So that's why these dollar amounts are changing, because this year it's going to be a full year, not half a year.
I would just add that, putting everything I said aside, the only thing that you're really changing on this document is the money. And you already approved the money in August of 22, and then you approved the increase when the chief came before you, whatever that was, that last budget year.
Yeah.
So this is memorializing the money that you already approved, not, don't forget, we're in the last year of the contract. This is the last year of your contract.
Right, and they're gonna ask for 2 more again this year,
That's right.
which we can determine if we want to or
Whether
not.
whether you do that or not is up for grabs.
Yeah, that language.
Up for debate. So I just make that point because the chief's not here, and I don't want him to not be able to say that that deal was already made about his flexibility.
You all set?
Mhm.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action on appointments to town board/commission. 1, appointment to the Historic District Commission for a 3-year term serving 12/1/2023 to 11/30/2026. Anyone like to make a motion to appoint someone to that to the Historic District Commission?
Well, we have a person who's, we have a person who's expressed, we have a person who's expressed an interest, Evan Massey. And he is looking to apply for the Historic District Commission. His goal is to be transparent with residents on local historical boundaries, align projects with preservation goals. I would make a motion to nominate him for that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action on reconsideration of open forum agenda items, established policy. Mrs. O'Hara.
I just want something to be clarified. When a person appears at the end of the night, he or she can only address what was spoken at that meeting, am I right?
For the agenda.
Correct. For
On
end
the
of one.
agenda that
The
night.
last one.
And there's a 3 minutes
Mm-hmm.
timing on that. And I want to say, all the publicity about this town doing that has been very positive. Very positive, which is a plus. And if we can control at the end, the voice that everybody wants to listen to and have within a town. So whoever initiated this, I thank you, because it ending up being a good thing, and it hasn't gone beyond the limits, because our president has controlled it quite well. Thank you for that.
All set, Claire?
Yep, thank you.
Next is executive session, discussion, oh,
Open
no?
forum.
Open forum.
Oh, sorry, I skipped it, see that? Open
Okay,
forum,
well, you're all
Never
right.
mind.
open forum, agenda items only pursuant to 42-46-60, maximum 3 minutes per person.
Yep, Mike Clifford, I want to ask, first of all, when he gave you an average for the sewer the sewer fees in other districts and towns, many of them are based on the water coming in and the water going out. We're not. We're charged a flat assessment. So I pay $2,800 a year for 5 people to flush the toilet because there's one person in each apartment in one building. So I think you can't compete. You need to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Secondly, I want to remind you that some of you were on the council a few years back when the administrator decided to take I think it was over $900,000 out of this account, the fiduciary account, to pay for the installation of the sewers on Edward Avenue and Parkview Drive because their cost was so high, he was trying to lower the cost. And I was opposed to that at the time that you did it because I always thought that money was in that account from people having paid assessments already having lines, and that money I thought was supposed to be used for the maintenance and servicing of current pipes, not to finance a project. So basically, I feel bad for those people because they paid a huge amount more than they were supposed to. Everybody enticed them into it for $19,000. It ended up $30,000. Most of them didn't even want the sewers, but it went in anyway. So, they're paying their assessments back, but their assessments should have been much, much higher if they had financed them through the regular way. So now I'm hearing that I'm going to pay a higher fee so that we can replenish the $900,000 that we loaned out instead of keeping it and using it as it was supposed to be used, which was the maintenance and servicing of the current lines. So, I still question the legality of that. And then the last thing is, I'd like to know, and I hope you find out, what the reserve balance of 25% sounds very high. I'd like to know what the other communities' sewer accounts fund balances. What do their policies say? What do they aim for? Because 25% does sound high. I guess that's it. Because one thing isn't on there. Well, no, one thing was not on the agenda, so I guess I can't speak to it.
No. And you got 30 seconds left.
Okay, I'm just going to say it anyway. I don't care.
You can't.
Can we consider going out to, it's not on the agenda. Could we
We can't.
consider sending the
can't.
zoning officer out to 146 to clean up that area instead of spending $17 million? It's not on the agenda for this, so I'm right. It's okay. But why didn't we start with cleaning
No,
up that area?
This is supposed to be just agenda items.
This is supposed to be
Good
just
try.
agenda. Sorry, okay.
That's okay.
Next week. Wow, you were so good. You were ahead of time and everything. Anyone else like to speak? Going once, going twice. Anyone else? No? Okay. Executive session discussion by council vote or other action, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A2, sessions pertaining to. We're going to table that, right? Okay, I didn't know if we had to do it and then, okay. All right, so that's going to be tabled. We're all set.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
That was a
My
quick one.
apologies for